Hi guys, welcome to this little mini series. It's one that I wanted to do for a little while and it's on Chaturanga Dandasana. So Chaturanga Dandasana, its full name, you'll probably hear me talk a lot about Chaturanga because it's quite hard to say Chaturanga Dandasana every single time you do that pose. And by the time I've said it, you've probably moved on to the next thing. So Chaturanga Dandasana is the Sanskrit name for the posture. It's actually known also, the sort of English version is known as four-limbed staff pose. So I want to break this posture down for you because I myself actually was finding that I wasn't doing it correctly, and what I could be doing is leaving my shoulders vulnerable. So when I learned this new or the correct way of doing chaturanga, it was much more difficult, but it felt better in my shoulders. And I also then wanted to sort of teach it to anyone that came to class. So I've done that, but I want to break it down a little bit for you. So even if you have had that breakdown with me before, this is a great reminder. So I'll show you a couple of different variations depending on where you're at with your chaturanga. Maybe where you thought you were, it may differ now with this new version or the correct version of Chaturanga. And it really is for the safety of your shoulders, so please make sure that you're doing it safely as you practice. You'll see I've got what looks like giant Jenga pieces behind me. It's my yoga blocks. So I'd recommend that having some yoga blocks for this session is going to be really helpful because we're going to use them as a guide. So let's get started. So firstly, the setup of my blocks, because it probably does look a little bit random at the moment, but I promise you and I assure you we are not going to be playing a game of Jenga. We really are going to be using them as a guide. So I've got them separated out in a position here, so I'm actually using 4. You could just use 2, so if you've only got 2, I would just recommend placing 2 of them like this. I've got 4 because I'm lucky I've got lots of yoga blocks, obviously because I teach. So what you want to do with your yoga blocks, so if you're just going to have it on one side, that's absolutely fine. I'm going to show you a couple of different variations of this so that you can give it a go. So firstly, your fingertips, they are going to be touching the blocks that you've got in front. So come onto basically all fours and like as if you're going to do some cat-cows, and have your fingertips facing and touching this front block, and then your block behind, you're going to have it about sort of 5-ish centimeters away from, somewhere between 5 and 10 centimeters away from your back of your hand. So from here, I'll just show you some of the common things. So if we start on our knees, quite often you'll hear me saying that, you know, you can do your chaturanga on your knees. It's absolutely fine. I find that a lot of people don't do it because they are thinking, well, if I do it on my knees, it's the easy version. Chaturanga is really tricky, and even on your knees, doing it properly requires a huge amount of strength. So firstly, kind of setting yourself up. If I show you what happens when we do chaturanga in the kind of way that I see a lot in classes. So I generally tend to see people going like this with chaturanga. So whether they're on their knees or they're lifted, they lower down like that. And can you see my blocks moved? So that's what the blocks are there for. They are there to guide you on whether your elbows are kind of moving back. And obviously, when they move back like that, it's leaving your shoulders quite vulnerable. So what we want to do instead is we actually want to come forwards instead of going kind of backwards. So you hear me talk about kind of keeping the elbows tight to the chest, and that's absolutely fine, but we also want to make sure that the shoulders are protected. So fingertips touching the backs of the blocks, this second block around 5 to 10 centimeters away from the elbows, and then from here, so you're on all fours. First preparation is to push the ground away from you, so you're pressing through the fingers, and that's going to add a bit of distance between kind of your shoulder blades and some strength. You're also not just letting the belly hang out here, you're really drawing it in towards the spine, and that's going to give you added strength in the sort of belly and sort of central panel of your body here, which is really, really important for chaturanga. So pressing the ground away from us, so nice and strong through the center portion of our body. And then usually we will have gone from, probably we would have been in maybe a plank pose. So if you're dropping onto the knees, you're coming into all fours. And then from here, you would actually come forwards. So you're actually starting to come forwards rather than just dropping down. You're actually going to bring the body forwards and then lower. So you can see these front blocks here are great for helping me realize kind of where my chaturanga should end, because what you need with your chaturanga is the ability to then be able to pull through into your upward facing dog, which I'm not going to do right now because I will send these blocks underneath me flying onto the floor. So press back up. And then let's show you the variation when we're on our toes. So that was pretty strong through my body. Bearing in mind I've been practicing yoga for like maybe 7 or 8 years. That is strong. And I only learned how to do chaturanga properly in the last year. Just being honest. So when you are going down from your plank pose, obviously this is going to require even more strength through the shoulders and through the sort of belly and tummy area. So coming from your plank pose, same thing, not saggy, sort of hanging out in the hips, none of this going on. We're really strong through the back, pressing the ground away from us. And again, we don't want to just go down like this and send the blocks back. What we want to do is we want to send our body forwards. So press through the ground and then come forwards and lower down. So again, you can now see that I've almost got like a little right angle at my elbow. So from here, then you would have the ability to lift up into your upward facing dog, which I can't do because I can't lower my hips anymore because they're stacked on the blocks. So lift back up. So come forwards, pressing the ground away from you, and lower. So as you can see, you may not be able to see, my body shakes. It's a challenging pose. It's a challenging posture. It's not something easy. So what I would say is when you're starting out, don't push yourself and go to the full chaturanga. Try going on your knees and doing it properly. It's like any form of exercise. You want to make sure you're doing it properly, because if you're doing a half-hearted, bicep curl and flinging your body with it, you're not actually able to lift that weight properly. And it's the same with chaturanga. But also there is that health and safety element of protecting your joints. And the shoulder has so many complications with it. It can have so many issues because it's such a complex joint, and it's so important. So make sure you're giving that a go. So from here, what I can suggest for you is actually, once you've got that kind of initial feeling of kind of sending the body forwards with your chaturanga, you can then maybe move these blocks out of the way, leave the front ones there. And I recommend leaving the front ones there is quite a great way to start off your chaturanga journey. If you're new to chaturanga, you're new to yoga. So let's play around with this. So again, my fingertips are going to be just touching the back of these blocks. So let's start from, if we were going through a sort of vinyasa flow, we would have gone into plank pose. We're drawing the navel to the spine, pressing the ground away from us. So if you were dropping onto your knees, I'd give the cue, drop onto your knees. And then from there, you're going to bring the body forwards and down to those blocks. And this is really the lowest you want to go, because from here, we'd press up, untuck the toes, and lift into our upward facing dog. So that allows you to have enough space, because if you've lowered really far to the ground, obviously there's not enough space to then start lifting into your upward facing dog. So let's give that a go on our toes. So the full variation, you can hear that I'm tired. You can hear it in my voice. You can hear me huffing and puffing because it's not easy. And that's why you don't want to be doing loads of chaturangas either in yoga. From here, okay, so you're in your plank pose, you're pressing the ground away from you. You've drawn navel towards the spine. So you're going to send the body forwards and down. From here, you can either untuck the toes or you're rolling over the toes and then pulling yourself up into your upward facing dog. And then obviously progressing from there. Next stage would be to then take the blocks away. So I'd highly recommend that if you're practicing yoga regularly, yoga blocks are so helpful. And although I talk a lot about, being able to utilize things like cushions or props in the house, books, things like that, yoga blocks are really helpful. So I'd highly recommend just grabbing 2 yoga blocks. You can pick them up for really cheap online, and they're pretty hard wearing, so they'll last a good amount of time. But once you've progressed from that stage where you're feeling really confident with your chaturanga, let's have a look at what that looks like. So, same positioning. You've probably done this a million times in your vinyasa flow. So from here, from your plank pose, pressing the ground away from you, you send the body forwards, you lower down, then you come forwards and you're either rolling over the toes like I did or untucking the toes, coming into your upward facing dog. From there, you can then come back into your downward facing dog. And that's the flow you would have seen so many times over in your class. It's so important to do your chaturanga correctly, not because I want you to work out and be super strong. I want you to have that, but actually from a safety perspective. When you allow your body to go into this weird positioning with the arms like this, or you're going really super low and there's no space, it's not good. Another key thing with your chaturanga is really keeping the elbows tight into the body. That's so important. You're not doing like chicken wings, coming down like this. You really want to keep them tight into the body like this. So it really works on the positioning of where the shoulder joint is and where everything attached to it is moving. So thank you so much for joining me today for this mini series. As I said, it's one that I wanted to do for a little while now because I do see so many people either struggling with chaturanga or kind of just throwing themselves down to the ground. So this is just a couple of tips that you can use to really progress your chaturanga. As I said, I would highly recommend having some yoga blocks that you can use, and that's going to help you with your progression of your chaturanga. I'd also say try not to do too many chaturangas. I try not to put too many of them in my classes because I don't think that they serve you too well when it comes to shoulder health. So I will only ever throw in, a good couple of vinyasa flows and not do loads of them because it isn't great. And as you tire, because it's a challenging posture, your actual structure, your posture itself can become sloppy. And that's where injuries can occur. Just little things you're just forgetting because you're tiring. It's like anything in exercise. So give this a go. Let me know your feedback. Please send me any pictures and videos of you trying your chaturanga. Let me know how you get on. Let me know if you feel like you've been practicing it incorrectly. And I really hope that this is really helpful for you. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Take care. Bye.